Recently, the internet has been flooded with realistic AI video generation tools like Sora2 and the latest Veo 3.1. Sure, most people are using them for funny stuff like cameos and comical POVs. But there are some seriously high-value use cases here, like generating professional marketing videos at a fraction of the traditional cost. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to use these AI video models with n8n to automate your content creation, whether that's for your business or just for fun. This is completely no code, so we're going to start from scratch, and I'll keep the technical jargon to a minimum so you can actually follow along and set up your own automated workflow at the end. Quick note, if you're brand new to n8n, you should be able to follow along the video with ease. But if you want to understand more on what's going on under the hood, I've got other videos that cover foundational concepts and all the basics that you need as somebody with no technical background. And I'll link those in the description below. So let's dive right in. So the first thing you want to do here, if you haven't gotten set up on n8n, is to go to n8n.io. And what you want to do is to hit get started. And of course, if you already have an account, you can just hit sign in and get started. So assuming you don't already have an account, this is how you get signed up on n8n. Just put in your full name, email, confirm email address. And once you have that all filled in, what you want to do is just hit start free 14-day trial. And you don't actually need to put in any credit card. You can start playing around with it for at least 14 days using n8n Cloud. There are a couple of onboarding questionnaires you can just go ahead and fill in, hit OK. And under email, you can skip this for now. This is to invite emails of team members, so we don't need that for now. And it's going to spin up your workspace. And there you go, the workspace is ready, and we're going to hit start automating. This is what your workspace looks like. And what you want to do here is to hit start from scratch. That will lead you to your first workflow or worksheet, where you can then build your automation on these worksheets. So the very first step in any workflow, you want to hit what we call a trigger node. So a trigger node is a trigger event that will kickstart your entire workflow. So in this case, what I want to do is introduce the first trigger node. And how I would do that is to hit the plus sign here in the middle. You can also do the same thing with a plus sign here on the top right-hand corner, but I'm going to hit the one here in the middle. And as you can see, there's a list of choices of trigger nodes that you can pick from. So in this case, I'm going to just choose a chat trigger node. So literally I'm typing in chat. So hit chat trigger node. This is going to be the trigger node that I want to select. You don't have to do anything right now. Just hit out of the window and you'll be back in the worksheet right here. Now you have to define then when this trigger happens, what happens to the next node. In this case, this is a chat message received. So which means you can actually pull up from the bottom bar here, the chat section. And once you hit it, it'll come up and you can actually populate this node with a value. So in this case, because this workflow is going to generate videos for me with Sora2 or Veo 3.1, what I want to fill in is a very specific prompt. So in this case, create an 8-second cinematic. Let me just pull this up so you can see it. Create an 8-second cinematic marketing video for a small local coffee shop called Bean Haven. Show a beautiful close-up of fresh coffee beans being grounded. So this is just describing the scene that we want Sora2 or Veo 3.1 to generate. We're gonna just hit enter, or rather the arrow button there. So this is going to populate the node with the input, right? So the chat input is basically what I've just typed in to the chat. So this will then get passed on to the second node. So the second node we want to hit here, and again, I just hit the plus sign over there, is the HTTP request node, right? So what this is calling external tools, like in this case, OpenAI Sora 2. But the beauty is you can use this HTTP request node to call any other external tools to help you accomplish the use cases that you want to work on with your workflow, right? So in this case, with the HTTP request node, I'm going to just rename this to a post request, right? And I've got these fields to fill in, but what I want to do over here right now is to just simply go to platform.openai.com/docs/guides/video-generation, right? So this URL link right here. The reason why I want to go there is it contains all the documentation on how I could call the HTTP request. And for those of you who are not familiar with what HTTP request is or what API is, it's basically just a node that allows you to access Sora2, which is hosted by OpenAI, in order to use their services. So here, once you're on this page right here, you want to scroll down to the create video part of the documentation, and don't get intimidated. What you need to do is simply go over to the curl command And what you want to do is just copy the whole thing. And you don't really need to fully understand what's in here. All you really need to know is this is basically posting a request to this particular URL. There is an authorization key, which is the key that you need to access the services, because otherwise everyone can just start calling the services, right, and create videos. And then there's a prompt, which is a prompt for the video on what type of videos we generate. And then there's a model, the size, and the duration of the video. So anyway, you just want to copy that and go to your workflow. And here, what you want to do is we just want to import curl, right? So we're going to just literally paste the entire thing in here, right, and hit import. Now, when you do that, so you can see there is an error here. This is because the format that was available on OpenAI right here has added an additional slash at the end, which breaks up the format that's acceptable on n8n. So what we want to do is just literally erase the last slash over there, the last one, and leave everything else the same and hit import again. As you can see now it works and all the fields have been automatically populated. So we're going to leave everything as is right now. Under authentication, this is where we want to put in our API keys, right? So in this case, we're going to pick a generic credential type. And again, this is just a key that you use to access the services. So here we want to pick header auth. This is just a type of the authentication that you would choose. And under header auth, you would create a new credential. So in this case, we're going to name it OpenAI Sora2 as our key. And for the name, we want to go back to the documentation. And so you can see it says authorization and then bearer and then the key, right? So authorization is actually the name. And so what you would do is just literally type in authorization. And under value, what you want to do is to type in bearers space the whole API key. Now, API key, again, is a key that you need to get, which is a secret key, and you want to keep it safe to you because it's specific to you. So anybody who has a key can actually call the services that is linked to your account. So what you want to do here is actually go over to the dashboard. And once you're in the dashboard, you can see on your left-hand sidebar, there is the API key section. And here you can actually create a new secret key. I already have a bunch created, so if this is your first time in the dashboard, it'll be blank. So I'm going to name my test key n8n Sora2, right? And then I'm going to keep everything else the same and just create key. And now I have the key right here. Remember to copy it because once you toggle out, this is not going to be available anymore. All right, so I'm going to hit done, hit back to my workflow and paste the value here, which is bearer space dash API key. I'm going to toggle this to expression so you can see it, right? So what I did was I typed in bearer space the whole entire API key right here. And of course, I'm going to revoke this API key later on because I don't want people randomly using it. So I'm going to hit save now. And there you go. It says credential successfully created. And we're going to toggle out. Now, the beauty of doing that is that now you don't have to send the header part of the post request, which is really just a part that is doing what we did earlier, which is having the authorization and the API key sent across to make sure that we can use the service. So we're going to toggle that off, and then we're just going to take a look at the body here. And there are a couple things in the body. This is basically just a prompt. So the prompt for the video, right? What type of video do you want to generate? So by default, there's this value here, which is white tracking shot of a teal coupe driving through So we don't want this because we want it to be based on what we have. So I'm going to toggle this to expression. And the reason why I'm toggling it to expression is so that I can not just blow it up so you guys can see it, but delete that and drag the chat input over here. So what we're doing here is we're dragging the variable into this field here so that every time you input into the chat a different type of prompt, it's going to change depending on your input, right? So instead of if you were to just type it in as fix, what happens is that it's going to just stay as the fix prompt. Let's say if you just copy the whole thing here as fix, this is going to stay as the video prompt for every single run of the workflow. But that's not what we want to do. We want it to change based on our chat input. So that's why we're dragging it in the chat input and dropping it into the value right here. So for the model is Sora2 Pro. You can pick Sora2 as well. Right now, I'm just going to choose Sora2 Pro. And the size is 1:80, 720, that's good. And then in terms of seconds, so 8 seconds is good for me. And then now I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to hit execute step to try it out. And there we go. This just means that the status, as you can see, is queued. So which means it's going through, is producing the video. Sora2 is working on the video. And we're just going to wait a little while before we request for the video, right? Because it needs some time. So the next node you want to hit here as that's processing is the HTTP request node again, but this time I'm going to name it the get request because we've posted a request to Sora2 to generate a video. Now we want to get the particular video that is being or have been generated, right? So here again, what we want to do is just to go back to the documentation, the same documentation. So this time we want to scroll down all the way to download MP4, which is just download the video. So in this case, you see that there is a curl command here. Again, you have the choices of JavaScript, Python, and curl. We want to pick curl, and we're going to copy this and go back into our get request and do the same thing, which is import curl, paste the whole thing, and hit import. You're going to have this all filled in. And what you want to do now, this URL, it says video underscore ABC123. This is actually the video ID, right? Because in order to get the video, it needs to know which particular video that you're requesting for. So we need the video ID to be passed on to the URL here. So what we want to do is to just drag the ID from the previous node. As you can see in the post request, it's going to output the video ID that it's working on. So we're just going to drag that. And sorry, before I could drag that in, I need to toggle this to expression. And then I'm going to just literally drag that and put it right in between the two slashes here, replacing the video underscore ABC123, right? So once that's done, it knows which video to fetch. Authentication, we're going to pick the same, which is generic credential type and header auth. And because we have set it up previously, OpenAI Sora 2 header auth, I'm going to choose the same credentials here because, essentially it's the same API key that we're using. And then we can then toggle off the send headers. So everything else I'm going to leave as is. I'm not going to do anything here. So I'm just going to hit execute step. And if the video is ready, it's going to output to me. Okay, so as you can see, the video is not ready yet, it says. So we're going to wait a little while more for it to be ready. And of course, the best practice here is to add a wait node in between so that when the workflow runs, it actually waits a certain amount of time before you have to get requests, and also introduce an if logic where if it fails, it goes into a loop and tries to get it again. But in this case, I don't want to get into too much of the details because this is supposed to be very beginner friendly, making sure that you can put this together even if you're brand new to n8n. And of course, once this is done, I'm going to link the template of the workflow below. So I'm going to now go back to the get request here and hit execute step again. All right, so now I've hit the execute step again and it's rerun that. Now the video is ready. So this is the output that I'm getting, which is the video in MP4 format. So I'm just going to hit view so that we can view the video right here.
Cup begins with freshly ground, locally roasted beans and finishes with a little art and a lot of heart. Locally brewed, lovingly served.
All right, it looks pretty okay. Some of the fonts are messed up a little bit. But yeah, some work can go into the prompting to make sure that they get the fonts right. But so far in terms of production quality, it looks pretty good. So that's an easy way to kind of generate that video with a simple HTTP request to OpenAI, right? And of course, you don't want the video specifically to stay here, but what you want to do is maybe send it somewhere that you can access outside of n8n instance. So in that case, maybe you want to introduce something like the Gmail node. So what I did was just hit the plus sign here and typed out Gmail, and there's a Gmail tool. And what you do is to pick a send message on Gmail. So in this case, you want to connect a credential, so you can go create credential for Gmail. It's super easy. You can sign in directly from the n8n cloud instance. You can hit sign in from Google, and if you're using Google Chrome, a Google authentication page will pop up and just sign in from there. All right, so once your account is connected, what you want to do is to head back here. So where you want to send this to is the email that you want to put in here. So I'm going to put in my email, automateWithMarc@gmail.com. Subject is just going to be Sora2 video. I'm going to leave the email type as is, message, video, output. So I'm going to, again, just put a simple text there. And what I want to do under option, I would do an attachment. And currently no items exist. So I'm going to add attachment. Attachment field name should be video.mp4, which is exactly the name over here, right? So I'm going to just hit execute step now. As you can see, it's send an email. So here's the email that I've received in my inbox with the video attached. I'm going to download it and play it.
Every cup begins with freshly ground, locally roasted beans and finishes with a little art and a lot of heart. Locally brewed, lovingly served.
All right, so there we go. That's the video. Cool, all right, but of course that's not the only way to call Sora2 within n8n. So one of the other ways is to access the video model generation platform like WaveSpeed or Fall AI, which I've covered in my previous videos before. And the good thing about these platforms is sometimes the pricing can actually be cheaper than going straight to OpenAI. And the second thing is it makes it super easy for you to access multiple models just by using one credential onto the platform. So in this case, I'm going to show the example on Wavespeed. So if you don't already have an account on Wavespeed, you can go to wavespeed.ai, get signed up. And once you're in, what you want to do is just to hit explore all model. So here with the model, you can choose the text to video, what we're looking for. And Sora2 should pop up right here. So Sora2 text to video. So if you just select that, these are just some sample videos that they have generated based on this prompt. What you want to do is toggle over to the API section. And as you can see, this looks really familiar with what we've seen before on the OpenAI API documentation, which is just a curl command. So what we want to do is same thing. We want to make sure it's HTTP curl and copy the entire curl chunk right here. And then we're going to go back to our workflow. And now we're going to just sever the connection here, move this one down. And what we want to do is build the same thing, which is another HTTP request node. In this case, we're going to do a post Wavespeed. So this is a post request to Wavespeed. And what we're going to do is import curl and literally paste the entire thing in here and hit import. Now, as you can see, the fields are similarly auto-populated. And what we want to do here, same thing, we want to set up the authentication, right? So generic credential type, and this is going to be header auth. And now we can't use OpenAI Sora 2 anymore. We want to make sure that we create a new credential that is for Wavespeed, right? So I'm going to call it Wavespeed demo. And then under name, we want to go back to Wavespeed documentation. It's the same one, which is authorization and bearer. So we're going to do the same thing, which is authorization. And then under value, toggle this to expression. It is bearer space your API key. So for your API key, what you want to do is to just hit the API key tabs here. And I already have 2 keys created. Basically, if you're in here for the first time, you want to hit create key. And again, these are all paid, right? So what you want to do is to top up the billing section as well, put in $5 or $10, and you're good to go to start experimenting. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to create key. I'm going to call it n8n Sora2/Veo 3.1. I don't know if you could use slash, but that's, yeah, you can. So this is the API key. I'm going to copy that. Of course, I'm going to revoke it afterwards, but just going to go back to the credentials here, paste the entire API key in here, and hit save. And see the checklist sign popped up. So we're good to go and close that. And similarly, now we don't need the headers part. We're going to toggle that off and just focus on the JSON body here. So a couple of specifications on what we want the video to look like. For example, duration 4 seconds. So maybe you want to set this to 8 so that it matches with the Sora2 one that we've created before. So under prompt, what we want to do is we want to drag in the chat input right here. Okay, so it's the same input currently, but just to make sure that it's generating something different than what we've seen before, I'm just going to give it a new input later on. But under size, the size is the same. I'm going to leave it as that. I'm not going to hit execute step just yet because what I want to do is actually change the chat input. This time I'm going to say create an 8-second upbeat marketing video for a neighborhood fitness called Pulse Fit. So this time the business is the fitness center business. So anyway, there's 8 seconds of that. So I'm going to hit that arrow sign over there. So it sends the post request to the node and it's successful because it's outputting that the request has been created. So it's sent over to Wavespeed, and Wavespeed is now currently processing that, creating that video with the Sora2 model. Okay. Now we want to wait a while, and technically you can do a wait note here. As I've said before, we can say, hey, this is wait 30 seconds or whatever. And if you hit execute step, it's going to wait for 30 seconds. And while that's spinning up, what we can do is, this is just a repetition of what we did. We want to do a get request, right? Because once we post a request, we want to get the video back. And in order to get this curl, we want to go back to Wavespeed. And under the post curl command, there's the second query result curl over here, which we want to copy. And we're just going to go back to now the n8n workflow here. And we're going to paste the curl chunk to get request. And that's just going to get auto-populated. And so similarly, you're going to see the request ID expression here, which you want to replace with the actual ID that you got from the previous node, which is the wait node. And this is going to be the same ID as the post node. So we're going to just drag that ID over here. So that tells basically the get request which video on Wavespeed that is going to fetch for you. So under authentication, similar thing, we're going to choose generic credential type, header auth, and Wavespeed demo. So we can toggle off the send headers here, and we're going to just hit execute step to fetch the result there. There you go. As you can see, the output from WaveSpeed is slightly different from the output from OpenAI. OpenAI's output allows you to download or view the video directly as an MP4, but here with WaveSpeed is actually in a URL format. So this is a public URL. Once you hit this link with your browser, this is going to download the video. So let's just paste this into our browser. And here's a video from Sora2.
Pulsebit, we get stronger together. From group classes to personal coaching and mindful yoga, every drop of sweat takes you closer to your goals. Feel the energy.
All right, that looks pretty good, actually. I like the audio that goes with it. So that's Sora2 with WaveSpeed. And so what we can do now is actually then add a Gmail node to send out the URL link. And in this case, we're going to pick the send message. And with the Gmail node, again, you have an account already created before, so you can just pick the same account. It's a send message, and this time I'm going to send it to automate with Marc at Gmail, which is the same email. And subject, I'm just going to name it video generated, right? And the output is basically the URL output as a message that's going to be sent onto our email inbox. Now, I'm not going to hit execute step because we know what's going to happen here. It's going to just send a text into the email. Instead, what I want to do is actually show you guys what you can do to change the model from Sora2 to Veo 3.1. Now, basically what we need to do is we want to go into WaveSpeed again. And here, instead of Sora2, what we want to do is we go back to the Explore model. And in Explore models, what we want to do is to checklist text to video and scroll down to Veo 3.1 text to video. And that's going to lead you to a very similar page to what you see with Sora2. This is the sample video with a particular prompt. And of course, what we want to do is go over to the API tab here. So as you can see, it's very similar to what we saw with Sora2. What we want to do is just copy the curl chunk over there for the post request, go back to the workflow, open up the post to WaveSpeed, and just paste the entire import curl to replace the previous ones. And do the same, almost the exact same thing, right? Authentication, we're going to pick generic credential type, header auth. When it comes to the credential, it's the same WaveSpeed demo. So we're going to toggle off the headers right here and focus on the JSON body. Now, under aspect ratio, we want to just pick a 9:16 aspect ratio so that it is comparable to what we've generated previously with the fitness video with Sora2, right? So it's more for TikTok rather than the typical video ratio. And what we want to do is under prompt, we want to replace this with the chat input from our chat trigger, right? So once that's done, I'm just going to hit execute step. And there we go. The request has been created on WaveSpeed. So WaveSpeed is working on the video as we speak, only this time using the Veo 3.1 model. So then on the workflow level, we want to run the wait node, and you can click the play button right here. It will run just that particular node and not the next node, because under the get request, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we change this into the get request that is applicable to Veo 3.1 model, right? So going back to WaveSpeed, there is the query result here. Again, I'm not sure actually, it might be the same query result curl right here, but just in case, I'm just going to run that again. Just paste that in, authentication, same thing. We're going to choose generic, header auth, WaveSpeed demo, toggle off the send headers, and under request ID, toggle it to expression, and just remove that, replace that with the ID from the wait node. So it knows which video ID to fetch. I'm just going to hit execute step to fetch the video. And there you go. As you can see, the output is right here. So let's send this over to the email this time so that we can see what arrives in the email. So we're going to hit the execute step on the send message. And there you go. It's sent to my email. So let's see what I get in my email inbox. So this is what I'm seeing in my email inbox. So I'm going to open that. It's going to download the video.
Let's go, team. You've got this. Push through. Great job, everyone.
So that's a video from Veo 3.1. So I'll let you guys decide whether this is better than Sora2. But I kind of like Sora2's video a little bit better in terms of color tonality, the audio, etc. But yeah, Veo 3.1 is not too far off. So yeah, that's a simple way to set up Sora2 and Veo 3.1 to plug it into your n8n workflow. And of course, the idea is that once you have this workflow set up, any message that you type into the chat is just going to trigger the workflow. It's going to post a request into WaveSpeed. It's going to wait for the video to be generated, get the result, and send it to your email. Now, of course, you can change the trigger into other types of event triggers, like, for example, a Slack message or WhatsApp message or a Telegram message, depending on your needs, or even an on-schedule trigger. So there's a lot of flexibility. The possibilities are endless here. But yeah, so what I wanted to do is just to show you guys how easy it is to plug Sora2 or Veo 3 video generation model into n8n. And there were two ways of doing it. Of course, going straight into OpenAI for Sora2 or going into the video generation platforms for all the other models. While technically Veo 3.1 are available on Google Cloud, it takes a little bit more technical know-how to get those connected. In my opinion, it's just easier to go to these model generation platform like Wavespeed. Again, that's not the only one. There's Fall AI. There's also Key AI, which apparently has lower pricing. So yeah, keep an eye on these few platforms. Typically they are pretty competitive with the pricing. They obviously try to compete with each other. But yeah, so the benefit of it, you get access to multiple models within a single platform with a single credential. At the same time, there are some drawbacks, which is, if the platform is down, then your workflow might actually break. But again, you can navigate that by having an account on another platform as an alternative or having a direct access to their providers in OpenAI or Google Cloud. But yeah, let me know if that's helpful. And if you have any difficulties in any part of the build, let me know as well. And if you have any ideas as to what you want to see me build next, let me know in the comments below. But as always, if you find this useful, please consider subscribing and I'll see you on the next one.